For centuries, journalism didn't have to explain itself. It simply showed up, reported the facts, and the public, more often than not, trusted what they read, watched, or heard. That world is gone. Today, trust in media is hovering near historic lows. The lines between reporting and opinion are blurred. Social media has elevated everything and everyone with a platform into a publisher. And now artificial intelligence is reshaping not just how content is distributed, but how it's created. So here's the question facing every newsroom, every journalist, and frankly, every platform. Who gets to be trusted and why? A new effort aims to answer that. It's called the 2026 Oxford Declaration on Journalistic Integrity and Public Trust, a sweeping framework designed not just for traditional newsrooms, but for the entire information ecosystem, from publishers and editors to influencers, podcasters, and even the platforms themselves. And it doesn't just talk about principles. It challenges the industry to rethink transparency, AI, objectivity, attribution, and even the role journalism plays in a functioning democracy. Joining me today is someone many of you will remember from a powerful conversation we had about a year ago. Back then, Steve Herman joined us as Voice of America's chief national correspondent, speaking candidly when he and more than 1,000 of his colleagues were suddenly sidelined, cut off from their work and fighting for the mission of independent journalism on a global stage. Today, you're executive director of the Jordan Center for Journalism, Advocacy, and Innovation at the University of Mississippi. We are now helping shape what comes next for our industry, including your work on the 2026 Oxford Declaration on Journalistic Integrity and Public Trust. Steve, tell you what, it's great to have you here. We got a lot to chat about, but when we come back, let's get into this declaration and see what it's all about. Everybody stick around. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Walter Hussman. Our family has been in the news business for over 100 years. Journalism includes two parts, reporting the news and providing opinions. But in recent years, there's been too much opinion appearing in news reporting. This has eroded public trust in news reporting to the lowest level of any U.S. institution. To address this, we started a nonprofit, the Center for Integrity in News Reporting.
The Center for Integrity in News Reporting, CFINR, is on a mission to rebuild public trust in journalism, one newsroom and one classroom at a time. We champion the effort to have news organizations and journalism schools create and prominently display their own clear, concise statements of core journalistic values. Learn more by visiting the Center for Integrity and News Reporting site at cfinr.org.
All right, Steve, let's get into it. Why does journalism need a declaration right now?
I think the reason, Mike, that journalism needs a declaration right now is because of the suspicions about journalists and journalism and the low level of public trust in journalism, and also the fact that this entire industry is changing so quickly. I don't think if you got 4 or 5 academics and journalists in a room right now, they could even agree on what is a journalist, who is a journalist. And, we can argue about that for the next 10 or 20 years. But in the meantime, the house is on fire and, we need to respond to that.
All right, but who is this declaration for? Newsrooms, creators, platforms, all of the above? Who is it designed for?
Yes, it's all of the above. And what this really is designed to do is not to be the end all and be all. This is an opening statement, an opening salvo to all of our colleagues out there, to everyone who cares about journalism, to start a discussion. The Society of Professional Journalists is working on updating its ethics. Hopefully this will be a part of that discussion as well. We're not saying that this is the final word. In fact, just the opposite. This is really the opening of a discussion, and I would like to see other organizations, other meetings, other conferences discuss similar types of declarations and documents.
All right. The document itself or the declaration is available online for free. We will have a link to it on this episode's landing page. I have reviewed it, and you say in there you want radical transparency. That sounds about right to me, but what does that actually look like in today's working newsroom, in your opinion?
I think what radical transparency means is we have to be very frank, very open about how we do our jobs, where the money comes from for our newsrooms. Talk about the backgrounds of the journalists. Have more community discussions, especially if you're in a local newsroom. Don't make it such a one-way track. Get out in the community, talk to the Kiwanis, the Lions clubs, invite people from the community into your newsrooms. We need to explain to the public better who we are, what we do, and how we do it.
So you talk about a public disclosure profile. Should every journalist now and every newsroom have one, in your opinion?
I think so to a great degree. Now, look, it's hard to make a one size fits all declaration, as you know, Mike, about everything everywhere. There are certain places in the world where journalists and even their organizations need to be anonymous because people they write about are looking literally to kill them or put them in jail. So this doesn't necessarily apply in toto to everybody everywhere. But I think in general, when we're talking about the newsrooms and local radio stations, TV stations, community newspapers, the type of online outlets that have popped up, there definitely needs to be this transparency. I mean, it's difficult for me sometimes to go to some of these news websites, and some of them are getting very sophisticated at covering up who they actually are. You've heard of the pink slime publications, I'm sure you've discussed, and also those that rely on some level of foreign funding, or those that are actually maybe coming out of St. Petersburg, Russia, instead of St. Petersburg, Florida.
All right, so let's get into AI. You say in the declaration it must be traceable and accountable. Now, how realistic is that today? I mean, labeling all AI involvement, are you even saying that the AI we use behind the scenes, is there, paint this with the right brush. What are you saying when you're saying AI should be traceable and accountable?
Well, we're probably not going to reach 100% traceability on that at any time. But right now, where we're still in a sort of nascent stage with this, let's try to set some ground rules. There's tremendous confusion, and a lot of journalists and their unions are fighting back against newsrooms, against publishers who want to bring more AI into the mix, and even in a sense clone these journalists, whether they're television newscasters or bylines, and have AI complete the job or be the editor, and so that's problematic. We don't want to have AI basically playing the role of journalists, because fundamentally this goes back to a public trust issue. And if people think, well, there's not even a real person now behind this reporting, is that going to help with our public trust issue, or make it much worse?
All right, let's you these words appear in the declaration. You call for disciplined objectivity. In your opinion, did journalism drift or did public expectations change? I mean, is it the bigger problem? Is it what journalism is or what people believe it is what I'm asking.
Correct. I think both of those are issues we need to work on. As I mentioned earlier, who is a journalist? How would you define that now? The definition of somebody who's teaching in the Missouri School of Journalism, for example, or at the University of Mississippi, someone who has a PhD and is 75 years old is going to be a lot different, perhaps, than their undergraduate freshman student coming in who has not grown up on the CBS Evening News and the New York Times, but has been fed a diet on TikTok and YouTube, and they think they may know what journalism is. So, fundamental disagreements right there. And with AI getting into the mix right now, we took a recent survey, an experiment we were doing to see if people could tell the difference between a real newscaster and an AI newscaster, audio level. And we found that younger people were not as good as being able to discern that. But if you ask them, would they accept a newscast read by AI voices compared to the senior generations, they were vehemently against it. So there are significant generational gaps in attitudes towards the use of AI fundamentally. And these future generations seem to be the ones who are most alarmed about it, rather than those of us who have been around a long time, who you would think would be the Luddites in opposing any changes in technology. There are some days I'd like to go back to using my typewriter instead of a word processor, but
it is what it is.
It's not going to happen, right?
No. All right, so let's. I recently hosted a panel discussion at New York Press, put it up on this show, got a lot of feedback because we debated that age-old question: should we provide the news people want to know or the news they need to know? It got into a discussion about cadence. Do we increase our frequency to be more relevant? But does that sometimes be more bleeds at leads and PR stuff? And then the responses start coming in. Do you go for trust or do you go for reach? Let's just get to top line, bottom line, the world of survival today. No margin, no mission. You've heard that expression. Can publishers follow this declaration and still survive financially? That is my question in today's world.
I believe so. I'm optimistic. Each publisher needs to make their own choices, and different publications have different motivations. And let's be frank, for a lot of publishers out there, for a lot of news organizations, it is right now about survival, right? There's no doubt about it. And we've also seen this problem not only with newspapers or magazines. For many, many decades, I started out in local radio and television newsrooms in Las Vegas. And especially in those TV newsrooms of those network affiliates and the independent commercial stations, even back then, decades ago, you lived or died by the ratings, because the ratings meant what you could charge for commercial advertising, right? And it was a competition. And a news director who did not perform well, I used to joke, and maybe it's still true, that a television news director probably has a tenure in any particular job as long as the typical Major League Baseball manager, right? Maybe a season or two, and you're out if you don't perform. And that performance, frankly, integrity, public service journalism wasn't at the top of the list. It was the ratings. And so I was not a news director of the TV stations I worked at. I was an assignment editor and a reporter, and I was a news director of an all news radio station. And what we tried to do was find a mix. Sure, you've got to go out and do those stories because, if there's a fire somewhere and people can look out their window and see it, you better be reporting on that fire. How significant is that fire, especially if there's no loss to life or no significant damage? Well, still, people are going to turn the channels looking for news about that fire. And that may cause on that day a more significant story to go by the wayside. but you tried to balance it, or at least I tried, and my colleagues tried to balance it. Yes, we are going to have to put in these sensational stories for the purpose of competition and ratings and keeping us in business, but we also tried along with feeding you the sweet treats, to give you something that was a bit more nutritional. But a lot of what's out there these days is totally eye candy, so to speak. There's no nutritional value in it whatsoever. But I believe, and we can see, look online and in print at the publications that are surviving, that are flourishing. We were seeing the sort of like Us magazine, the tabloid type stuff, celebrity stuff kind of go by this wayside. But the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the New Yorker, the Atlantic, Vanity Fair, those are the ones that do seem to have solid corporate ownership that is obviously looking to make money, but also continuing to put out quality publications. And so the future in a lot of areas may be niche, right? But there's also a niche out there for quality, for first-rate journalism. There does seem to be the appetite for that.
All right, so let's bring this all home. What's next? Who adopts this declaration? Is there any plan for measurement, certification, or accountability? And what does success look like to you and your team 1 year from now?
Well, hopefully we're having a discussion, maybe refining this document. It's not something that's sealed and set in stone. I hope it will have some influence over similar discussions, including the SPJ Code of Ethics. We were very, very fortunate to have some leaders of top journalism organizations, some of the top academics, and also fields that were adjacent to journalism work on this. It's a starting point, Mike. And I don't know where we'll be a year from now. I think that's going to depend on how urgently we all feel that there is a need to work on things like this. But this came out at our recent conference in Oxford, Mississippi, which the theme was how the news media can regain public trust. Did we answer that question totally? No, absolutely not. Did we get more people thinking about it and raise consciousness among ourselves that this is a really serious problem? Yes, I think we succeeded in that. And we were lucky to have some outsiders come and address us from across the political spectrum, including Joe Kennedy III, a Democrat from Massachusetts who served in the House, and also Adam Kinzinger, who was a Republican in the House from Illinois. And what I told them when they asked what they wanted me to have them say to the audience, I said, we don't want this to be a kumbaya session, right? I want to hear some tough love from you. And I think among ourselves in the industry, we need to have these sort of discussions and bring in members of the public and bring in politicians and other stakeholders in journalism as well.
It's called the 2026 Oxford Declaration on Journalistic Integrity and Public Trust, a sweeping framework designed not just for the traditional newsroom, but for the entire information ecosystem. Our guest, Steve Herman, Executive Director of the Jordan Center for Journalism, Advocacy, and Innovation at the University of Mississippi. Steve, this is your second visit. Hopefully you'll be coming back for more, but more importantly, thank you so much for sharing this work with our audience today. We appreciate it.
Mike, thank you for helping to spread it to a wider and very important audience.